In the previous recording, I've spoken about paranormal operations. If you haven't listened to the previous recording that I've just uploaded, I recommend you to stop this video, go back and listen to the recording entitled Paranormal Operations before you continue listening to this recording. Anyway, I'll continue here. In that previous video, or audio recording, I've explained what a paranormal operation is. And later, when I listened again to the recording, I've noticed that I forgot to explain why paranormal operations are so successful. Okay, so I'm going to do that in this recording. Look, a paranormal operation can only be successful if there is either willing or unknowing ignorance among a population. And not only that, there must also be an investment in counterfeit needs for a paranormal operation to be able to manifest. I mean, just think about this. You have a population. Okay. I'm going to use the previous example that I gave in the previous recording. I spoke about Rebecca and how unclean spirits, which I labeled narcissistic psychopaths, how they used Rebecca through her way of thinking that was not biblical. They've used her by giving her two gifts, the one of smooth speaking, or basically the gift of seducing, and the clairvoyant gift of fortune telling. How they use her to cause ruin to a whole community, and how they later abandoned her after the demons wrecked a marriage by using her for it. Now I want to expand that example by explaining why that gift was able to operate. First of all, in every society, in every community, you have standards of beauty concerning females. In some African or West Indies regions, it's very important for a woman to have a broad behind. So when a woman is overweight with a broad behind, that's what's considered attractive. So when men that grow up in such communities, when they see a woman that's a bit overweight, or maybe she's obese but she has a broad behind, they get excited. It's natural for them to become excited when seeing a woman because that's part of their natural sexuality. But above their, let me say, included in their natural attraction to women, there's also this cultural framework that they've been programmed with through their upbringing. That's why whenever their brain notices a woman with a broad behind, immediately the sex hormones are activated because the brain is programmed to categorize this as attractive. It can be that someone grows up in such a community and then they are become less affected by that cultural framework, but nevertheless that cultural framework has an impact on their behavior. If you've grown, for example, in let's say Asian region where it's very in for women to be very, very thin, with small breasts and almost very almost a flat bottom. If that's the environment you grew up in, then that's what you're going to find attractive. Our environment in which we grew up has a huge impact on how we view and how we attach to view things, how we attach to things, and how we and also our opinions are mostly formed by our environment. So what does this have to do with the example I gave in the previous recording? Rebecca grew up in a community where females that had the Barbie figure, they were considered a big prize. It was promoted by mainstream media in movies, so that was the cultural archetype in her environment. And Rebecca Her shape was almost, she was not, she was slim. She had a medium-sized, she has medium-sized breast also, and so she was kind of, how do I say it? She looked like the image of the archetype of her environment. So if she would only speak a little bit smoother, and if she would dress a little bit provokingly, she would capture the attention of many people. Why? Because the people in that environment are programmed and trained to be attracted to such an image. So if she would reflect such an image, the well, Rebecca would become influential. Now Rebecca was not aware of any of this, but those unclean spirits were. Those unclean spirits were there when the builders of that community introduced those images. So they know how people in that community operate, how they think. It's very predictable for those demons. But why? Why this image of why this beauty standard? Well, I'm not going too deep into it, but it has to do with a counterfeit need to be accepted. It has to do with a counterfeit need to be. It's not. Now I'm saying there is a real need to be validated as a human. That's a part of our soul. We crave validation, but then there is a method of validation that's through beauty standards, by conforming to a beauty standard. Well, that the need to conform to a beauty standard, that's a counterfeit need. The whole need for a beauty standard is itself a counterfeit need. But it corresponds with the need for validation. So now people then are going to confuse, in this case, the women in that community are going to confuse the counterfeit need of conforming to some beauty standards. They're going to confuse that with the real emotion, the real soulish need to be validated. But because many of the women in that community are not born again, and so they're not even delivered, they can't discern. So when there's a beauty standard that's dominant in their environment, they adapt to it without them being aware of it. And so what happens? They're going to look to befriend other females that do reflect that beauty standard. And look at this. The men in that community that grow up with this beauty standard, they are attracted to that image also. So, of course, when a woman reflects that the beauty standard for that community, she's going to get a lot of attention of men. And other women are going to see this and think, hold on a minute, she's getting all that attention, all that validation. And the real need to be validated, because it's not validated by the Holy Spirit, now becomes activated, and now they confuse it with that counterfeit need to conform to that beauty standard. And because they see a woman that according to them has conformed to that beauty standard, now they think, if I'm associated with that woman and I become more like her, I'm going to have the same validation she has. That's how it operates. So that's why the paranormal operation through Rebecca was so successful. Why? Because there was a collective consent towards this counterfeit need. Because there was ignorance, partly willing ignorance, concerning the word of God, concerning the purpose of man. And because of that, you had this beauty standard that came up, that came in place. And now in order to make this beauty standards real, now you had to have real women that act out this. And of course, when women acted out, the men that are also captured by this beauty standard will react to it. And that's how the whole operation works. Advertisement companies know this. There was a time that they said sex sells. Well, it's true. Now, it's not only sex that sells, but it comes down to this. It's not really the sex itself that's really attracting people. It's the counterfeit needs that people in the community have identified themselves with. So, in that community, in that environment, Rebecca, that received the gift of smooth speaking, because listen, now you have a woman that receives a lot of attention because she is reflecting a standard, an idol of the community, and now she can also speak smoothly. because people also, part of being validated is also the need to be understood. So now she can also speak smoothly and people feel understood around her. So that's going to glue people more onto her. That's going to give her more influence and more impact. And then also the demons also gave her the gift of fortune telling. That means the other demons are revealing things onto her without her being aware of it. And now people are also realizing, well, don't admit it. Not only is she empathic, she can also understand things of you without you even explaining yourself to her. So she became a kind of pseudo-psychologist for many people. People trust her with their problems and all of that. And those people were not aware that it was demons working through Rebecca. Because look, if Rebecca would have left her environment and she would have went to a place with a completely different beauty standard, a completely different archetypes, the paranormal operation wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't. And look, the paranormal, I'm sorry, I often say psychological operations, I'm sorry, the paranormal operation also did not work on everyone, because there were women around, young women, that noticed that something's odd with Rebecca, and those women were women that were spiritually mature, and those women were also informed about the spiritual realm, so they know that something was wrong with Rebecca. That's why they avoided her. That's why they were protected. They were protected. But those that had lack of knowledge, they were captured by the paranormal operation. So understand this. Understand this. No paranormal operation can operate without a collective consent. And people gave this collective consent by agreeing with the archetypes of their culture, by agreeing with assumptions that they don't see as assumptions, but they see it as plain realistic fact. Look, a paranormal operation is only highly effective when it's hidden. The moment it becomes obvious that something is going on, it's beginning to lose its power. It's often then that the demons depart. But there's another thing you need to understand. Look, let me explain what a psychological operation is, because that word keeps coming up in me. A psychological operation is simply a performance, often a public performance, that's often used also in the media to change public opinion. Now, a psychological operation can be positive. For example, a lot of people are smoking, and now they are showing you damaged lungs on a plate in commercials, and also on many of the packages for cigarettes, they put pictures of wounds of deceased people that died of lung cancer and diseases associated with smoking. That's a psychological operation, and its aim is to scare people so that they won't smoke, to show them what the consequence of smoking can be. So a psychological operation can have a positive, it can have a positive goal. It doesn't always have to be wrong. There are also evil psychological operations, like hoax events that are portrayed in the media as real, just to cause fear into people. So I want to explain what a psychological operation is, because the word kept coming up in me. But that's different from a paranormal operation. Now, a paranormal operation can include a psychological operation also. It often goes hand in hand, but they are not the same. A paranormal operation, by definition, is always evil. Even if there's a relief effect that comes from it, the paranormal operation is still evil. Again, if you live in a community where you have certain standards, certain social constructs, look, I'm not saying that you have to shut down all social constructs. Because, look, you live in the world, you have a job, or you're going or you're also studying, you have social relationships. So there are social constructions, all right? And social constructions are often to guide interactions and to give people clarity. For example, spelling and grammar rules in a certain language or a dialect are there for communication purposes. So, okay, you can agree with that. Or you have road signs. Those are meant to give guidance and to how people drive and operate on the road to prevent accidents and harm. Okay, you can agree with that. There are some buildings in where you are not allowed to smoke. Well, I hope you're not smoking. But then so understand this, you have constructions, social constructions also. And social constructions can have a good purpose and a good reason, okay? But test all things. And when you see that some construction brings some kind of conflict that's harming people, then you need to question what's behind that social construct. A lot of people are blindly giving over the social constructs without questioning them and without being aware that those are social constructs. And that's the danger. Because once you have this attitude that you become like a zombie, that you just accept things without questioning them, man, you won't even be aware when a paranormal operation begins to operate through you. Because that attitude of not questioning anything but just blindly agree or defend things, that's making you a candidate for the, as I called them, narcissistic psychopaths to select you and operate through you. Look, I'm going to end this recording. I hope this extra explanation has benefited you. Above all, be blessed and be at peace.